Hey, Javon, could you unmute your microphone, please?
I apologize.
Thank you, my friend. You might want to start over again.
I apologize. Thank you so much. Good evening. I am Javon Collins, Performing Arts Director at the King Arts Complex. On behalf of our Board of Trustees, Executive Director Demetrius Nilly, our staff and volunteers, we'd like to thank you for joining us for tonight's program. We'd like to send a huge thank you to BalletMet, their entire staff, for tonight's Heart of Protest presentation and for their continued partnership and support of the King Arts Complex. Over 30 arts and cultural organizations in Columbus have teamed up for the Heart of Protest, which included 46 days of artistic protest determined by each organization and local artists to present 46 years of Mr. George Floyd's life. This effort has been both a catalyst and documentation of the global social justice movement that is underway. Heart of Protest features unique art installations, performances, and community events. Each partner organization has presented existing or new work that focuses on telling the story of Black America from slavery to present day. And we'd like to thank all of our Heart of Protest sponsors and partner organizations. As in the words of our Executive Director, Demetrius Nilly, the arts have always been at the center and sometimes at the front of social justice reform. In the true spirit of collaboration, the arts community has joined the King Arts Complex to show support for Black Lives Matter and protest through the arts. At this time, I would like to welcome Edward Liang, Artistic Director of BalletMet.
Evening, Javon. Thank you very much. BalletMet's partnership with King Arts Complex has been for 3 years strong, and we are happy to do this work together for the good of this community. The partnership began during the anniversary year of the Harlem Renaissance. Our two organizations developed a speakeasy event to honor this part of the American history that included dance, poetry, and music. For the past 3 years, we've been offering our free dance access program, SOAR on Saturdays, both at BalletMet and at King Arts Complex. These are 6-week sessions of dance classes that meet for 1 hour on Saturday in ballet, African, hip hop, and tap. BalletMet 2 is our second company and pre-professional program, which was founded in 2014 and has offered free performances at King Arts Complex every year. BalletMet 2 is a dance access and work development program for young artists as they finish their training. Their work involves bringing dance performances to the community while working with the main company. The dancers then go on to dance professionally in this field everywhere. Tonight, you will see Vincent Van Harris, one of our dancers from BalletMet 2, and BalletMet 2 Associate Director and Director of Education, Equity, and Community Engagement, Ambre Emory-Maier.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this partnership of Heart of Protest and the showing of Donald McKayle's Rainbow Etude. There is so much to say about Mr. Donald McKayle, his work, Rainbow Round My Shoulder and Rainbow Etude, and I will try to narrow my words down due to time constraints because we want you to be able to see Rainbow Etude and have time for dialogue. Rainbow Etude was choreographed in 1997 for a project with the American Dance Legacy Institute, which is housed at Brown University and is the brainchild of one of Paul Taylor's, who's a choreographer, his muses, Carolyn Adams and her sister Julie. The goal of the Institute is to introduce students and young professionals like BalletMet 2 dancers to the elements of a master work through a shorter work without diluting or changing the intent of the original movement vocabulary and the larger message of the master work. Think of it like a physical embodied entry point that can be related to music students learning to play a reduced score or reduced versions of songs. The tool of Labanotation was used for the reconstruction and the transmission, and I have part of the score here showing you this. I read it from the bottom up. And I use that to reconstruct Mr. McKayle's solo, The Rainbow Etude, on dancers from BalletMet 2. My first staging of Rainbow Etude, believe it or not, was in 1998. Etude is a distillation of McKayle's masterwork, like I implied, Rainbow Round My Shoulder, that was done in 1959. This larger, enduring work has been and continues to be performed around all over the world. The work, as well as Rainbow Etude, is about chain gangs, mostly Black, in the American South in the 1940s. And I have a quote for you. Dance to traditional prison songs, the work dealt with convicts' dreams of freedom and family, particularly women from whom they were separated, mothers, sweethearts, and wives. It was a work with tremendous dramatic impact, full of anger and darkness, but never sentimental, and reflecting McKayle's concern with the human, or in this case, inhuman condition, end quote. Chain gangs are degradation of human beings. This type of punishment was actually another form of slavery of Black and African American men who were used as objects to build roads, break rocks, and clear brush that could have easily been done by a machine. Prisoners suffered the loss of being authors of their own bodies. Can we even imagine that? I don't think most of us can. Mr. McKayle was a proponent of social justice and anti-racism. He said about Rainbow Etude, and I quote, "Rainbow came at the time when the civil rights movement was getting a real charge. It was a time of great change, and people were putting their lives on the line to effect that change. I thought that dance was part of that change in my own way." Mr. McKayle was an artist that asked the dancers to bring dynamics and emotional sincerity to their performances. When I stage this work, it feels like I'm entering a sacred space. I think about the oppression of chain gangs. I try to adhere to Mr. McKayle's intent of his work. And I respect that emotional and physical journey that the dancer needs to take every time they dance this solo. Mr. McKayle continued to choreograph for the rest of his life. Even in a wheelchair and suffering from cancer, he was working on a piece about Syrian refugees when he died in 2018. Quite a remarkable man. Now we're ready to show you Rainbow Etude, which is a little bit of over 3 minutes. And we're going to show you the solo first, and then I'll come back and talk a little bit more, and we'll do a little demo and show you it again. But before we start, I have 2 questions for you. One is, as you're watching it, what do you see and what do you wonder about? And number 2 is, how do you feel after watching the performance? How does your body feel? I invite you as we go along to put questions and comments in the chat. Here is Rainbow Etude.
Look over yonder, hot sun turning over. Look over yonder, hot sun turning over. And it won't go down, it won't go down. Did you ever hear that? Cuckoo-a-bird a-calling. Cuckoo-a-bird a-calling. Did you ever hear that? Cuckoo-a-bird a-calling. Cuckoo-a-bird a-calling. Sure sign of rain. Sure sign of rain. I've been wondering if anybody wonders. I've been wondering if anybody wonders. About for me, about for me. I've been hammering since last December. I've been hammering since last December. And I'm almost dead. Swing that hammer. Swing that hammer, swing it high, boys, up over your head. Swing it high, boys, swing it low, boys. Swing that hammer till you're dead. Mama, mama, do you hear me? Do you hear your poor son? Is you sorry that you bore me? Now you see what I done. Swing that hammer, swing that hammer, swing it high, boys, up over your head. Swing it high, boys, swing it low, boys. Swing that hammer till you're dead. If I ever leave this chain gang, as a coming home once more. Oh, my darling, don't forsake me. Please don't turn me from your door. Look over yonder, hot sun turning over. Look over yonder, hot sun turning over. And it won't go down. It won't go down.
So I'd like to invite Vincent Van Harris onto the screen, and we can talk a little bit about Rainbow Etude. Good evening, Vincent. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I thought it would be helpful to show the audience some of the movements that you do in the solo and talk about some of the significance of the movements. You've probably noticed that Rainbow Etude follows a song, and it starts in the morning and it goes until the end of the day. And the lyrics actually talk a little bit about that. The solo begins and ends with something that Mr. McKayle's called the convict shuffle. And that signifies the dancers being chained together by their ankles and then chained together with other men. So Vincent, could you show very carefully a couple of those steps? So he's not able to move his feet very far. It prevents from running away. Thank you. So that's the convict shuffle. It happens at the beginning of the dance. And in the morning, where's the prisoner looking, Vincent? I'm putting you on the spot.
Where the sun rises.
He's looking for the sunrise. Yep, and he's watching the sunrise there. From there, he also looks for a specific bird that lives in the South called the cuckoo bird. There is a real bird called a cuckoo bird. And when the cuckoo bird calls, that means that there's rain coming and there won't be any work outside that day. So could you show the cuckoo bird movement? So his arms moved. You probably saw that in the video. Then we have a lot of references to swinging the hammer. And there's different ways that Mr. McKayle's used these words to portray the movement. Vincent, can you show one of them for us, please? So you see the arc. And the Rainbow Etude, or rainbow round my shoulder, actually gets its name from the arc that the pickaxe would make. That would actually produce a little rainbow because of the humidity in the air in the South. Can you show that arc, Vincent, where you're facing upstage? So the prisoner is drawing the line, or the dancer is drawing the line of the rainbow arc. And then you notice there's a couple times in the solo where it looks like the prisoner is moving into daydreaming or reverie, or sometimes when I'm coaching this, I say, it's so hot and you're so tired and you're so dehydrated, you begin to hallucinate a little bit. And so at the very end, he thinks he sees his, oh, you want to do mama? Okay, he's going to do mama. Go ahead, do mama first. So he thinks he's back in his childhood. He sees his mother, and he has a lot of remorse for what he's done. And he's not sure that she will love him anymore for whatever he's in prison for. And then a little later on, he imagines his sweetheart. And you see this actually in Rainbow Round My Shoulder, the larger ballet. So we call this Oh My Darling. Go ahead, Vincent, sorry. So he sees her and touches her. Can you do the head, shoulders, waist part? So he says, oh my darling. He reaches, don't forsake me. And then he does that beautiful arabesque turn, which he won't do this evening for you. As I said, I gave you some questions to think about now, and I've given you a little bit more narrative. You probably realized at the end that the prisoner or the dancer has literally traveled from one side of the stage to the other side of the stage, so arcing the day itself. So we're going to go back to Rainbow Etude and let you watch it one more time with that insight, and then we'll bring Vincent back on. Thanks so much, Vincent.
Thank you.
Look over yonder, hot sun turning over. Look over yonder, hot sun turning over. And it won't go down, it won't go down. Did you ever hear that? Cuckoo, a bird calling. Did you ever hear that? Cuckoo, a bird calling. Sure sign of rain. I've been wondering if anybody wonder. I've been wondering if anybody wonder about for me. I've been hammering since last December. I've been hammering since last December. And I'm almost dead. Swing that hammer, swing that hammer, swing it high, boys, up over your head. Swing it high, boys, swing it low, boys. Swing that hammer till you're dead. Mama, mama, do you hear me? Do you hear your poor son? Is you sorry that you bore me? Now you see what I done. Swing that hammer, swing that hammer, swing it high, boys, up over your head. Swing it high, boys, swing it low, boys. Swing that hammer till you're dead. If I ever leave this chain gang, as a coming home once more. Oh, my darling, don't forsake me. Please don't turn me from your door. Look over yonder, hot sun turning over. Look over yonder, hot sun turning over. And it won't go down. It won't go down.
Thank you, Vincent. You got to see Rainbow Etude a second time with some more information. And now I'd like to move our program to question and comments section with some answers. And I'd like to invite our other participants back on the screen this evening. Javon Collins from King Arts Complex, Edward Liang, Artistic Director of BalletMet, and of course, Vincent Van Harris, our dancer from BalletMet 2. Wonderful to see everybody. We're far away from each other, but it's great to see you all. And again, audience, you can put your comments, questions in the chat. I do have some comments that I wanted to share that I'm seeing here in the chat. People talked about isolation, despair, angst, a sweeping sense of strength, though, in the isolation, powerful. Someone said that his body seems heavy because of the exhaustion at the time. So they're picking up on those performance elements. We do have a question for Vincent. Somebody wants to know, how was this like for you, Vincent, learning? It's a modern dance piece. So how is it like or different from learning a classical ballet piece or learning one of Edward's ballets? How is that? You want to talk about that a bit?
Let's see. This piece is very different from, I guess, most other pieces that I've learned in the past because, well, it's based off history and, you know, very important parts of history. And there's certain emotions that need to be portrayed to show the sorry. There's certain emotions that need to be portrayed in order to correctly show what had happened historically. And, you know, that's something that I found very important while learning this, you know, being able to tap into those emotions and correctly display what had happened.
And there's kind of a follow-up question for that. Is someone wanted to know how did it feel like for you to have to put forth those type of emotions, because you couldn't just put it on, you know what I mean? You couldn't play pretend.
Right. This is definitely a role where I don't have experience being in a chain gang because I've never been to prison, but you know, doing research and really thinking about not just that point in time in history or that specific character, but the amount of toll that would take on the person in that position is, you know, definitely something that affected me in a personal way because, you know, being an African American or Black, just, you know, knowing that history, it makes you think, like, how did these people make it through, and the amount of strength that they had to have to endure these times and just continue on living and fighting for their own lives.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We have a question. Actually, there's a lot of wonderful comments in here about its emotional piece, beautifully danced. We do have a question from someone that says, what was it like working with Labanotation? I'm assuming maybe that's for me. I'm not sure. Is that for me? Edward's nodding. I was trained in Labanotation a long time ago, back in the early 90s, and it's just another access point for me to learn and know about different dances and stage work. I haven't had an opportunity in the last number of years to use it as a tool. But when actually I went back to grad school, I was using that again on a regular basis. And actually Edward encouraged me to use that as a tool to bring some Balanchine smaller pieces or excerpts to our BalletMet 2 dancers to perform. So it's just, it's more specific in some ways sometimes, that if I'm using a video, that I can really check on things, or if I'm in the studio with Edward, learning some of his work and his way of moving, I'm taking notes, you know, and I'm using a video, I'm taking handwritten notes. So sometimes I'm wrong. And I have to go back and look at the video. I really like having all those tools at my fingertips. Now, I don't know, Vincent, if you want to comment about what was it like for me using Labanotation in the rehearsal setting, different from using a video.
I think the difference we had with using the Labanotation and versus like a video is just the amount of detail each step had written in versus just seeing the dancer and trying to mimic what they're doing without knowing exactly how the step happened or how to get into each movement. It's like very broken down and very precise.
Yes, what every stager needs, right? Precise. It sometimes drives you crazy. I have a question about, was that the whole piece? Yes, that was the whole piece of Rainbow Etude, the solo. Now, Rainbow Round My Shoulder, the piece that Mr. McKayle choreographed in 1959, is a much longer piece. I think it's about 20 minutes, 25 minutes long. You might be able to access excerpts of it online, but probably not the whole piece. Edward, you have a question here for you. For Edward, is the full ballet being considered for production by BalletMet?
I'm so glad that somebody asked that question, because when I was going to ask Amber the question that if she has any experience in staging any other sections of the full ballet. And yes, I am very interested in seeing the whole work. Just my viewpoint is that dance is the ultimate communicator and storyteller. And what I love about Mr. McKayle's work, if you can see, it is so dense in meaning and emotion. And that is, I think, well, truly important for the audience, but incredibly important for the dancers themselves, because that kind of highlights the relationship between audience and artist. So yes.
All right, we have another question for Vincent again. What was your favorite part about learning this piece, and why would you like to do more of this if you would?
I think my favorite part of just this piece and just learning it in general was knowing the history of it, because chain gangs aren't something that, you learned in American history class. Like, there's so many parts of, history and that's taught in schools that we just don't know about. And knowing these events and knowing what had happened and being opened up to another part of our history and being able to research now, like, more of what's happened. Like, I've gained knowledge and it's helped me, I guess, tap into a new emotional side of my own dancing.
Mm-hmm. So someone wanted to know who the music was by. It actually was arranged by Mr. McKayle and a gentleman named Alan Turistiano, using traditional chain gang songs. So Rainbow Round My Shoulder has their own chain gang songs that are arranged to tell the story, but Mr. McKayle and Mr. Turistiano wanted to do a separate thing for Rainbow Etude. I have another question in the chat. I'm scrolling through. Remember, you can also ask Javon if you have questions for him about HeART or the Heart of Protest. Just go ahead and put it in the chat. Question was the stomping on the floor meant to mimic the banging of the hammer? Yeah, Javon's nodding his head. Yes, it was. You got it. Yeah. Actually, one of the challenging things of teaching this piece to dancers that haven't studied other, like tap, is it's very rhythmical and it's syncopated. And the banging or the stamping and the slapping of the fists together, it's really important it's at the correct places because it highlights the music and the lyrics. Vincent, do you want to talk a little bit about how that was?
Oh yeah, it was definitely difficult at first because, you know, being predominantly a ballet dancer, that you're usually lighter on your feet, and I've taken tap in the past, so I'm used to making a bit of noise, but even then, like, really being able to be on the music and having the correct sound that, you know, the stager's looking for is a lot more difficult than it seems.
Yeah, I'm sure you, Vince, all the BalletMet 2 dancers got to learn this solo, men and women. And I'm sure they got sick of me clapping my hands and singing and shouting sometimes the rhythm to them all. Edward, here's a question for you. Does the company regularly train in the Lester Horton technique?
BalletMet does not. I should know this a little bit more. Maybe Amber, you could help. Is that in the BalletMet Dance Academy, do we have sections of the Horton technique in our modern classes?
We don't. We used to in the early 2000s when I first came to BalletMet. There was a wonderful teacher, Maria Glimsher, who still is in the area. Yeah, so now he knows who it is. Yeah, Maria used to teach from the Horton technique. She was trained in the Horton technique, and students had an opportunity to learn that. It's not a widely taught technique in its very pure form. It's beautiful. It's also very difficult.
Very difficult. Very, very difficult.
Javon, we have a question for you. It's like I lost him for a second. Maybe he'll pop back. Going back to Vincent, did the events that happened this past summer have any effect on the learning or performing this piece for you?
Yes, I'd definitely say yes. You know, all of the events of the summer and all of the events that, you know, we've seen from since the day I was born, honestly, have impacted the way that I approach the piece as a whole. I mean, I personally was downtown for a lot of the summer, just listening, gaining information, participating in marches, sharing things on social media, just doing what I can to, I guess, help people acknowledge, you know, all of the wrong in the world, and doing this piece and like knowing that, you know, this happened in the past, and, you know, well, history does repeat itself, and this is definitely not a situation you want to see happen again. And being able to show this piece and hopefully show it well and bring the right emotion to what Mr. McKayle's was trying to portray, and open people's eyes to that, and like help them see just what's wrong. And yeah, it's definitely affected the way I approach and perform the piece. Being able to go to a place emotionally that is uncomfortable and a lot of people don't like to talk about.
Yeah. We have some questions for Javon. People would like to know if you can talk about the impact of the Heart of Protest on the community, and then let me give you another question to add. Can you say if there's any upcoming programs or performances of Heart of Protest?
Okay, well, first off, thank you for, you know, the question. And as far as the impact, as we've been going through this since last May, our first event was last Juneteenth. You know, we've seen the impact because for the King Arts Complex, we really want to engage all of our arts partners who may not know how to speak to what's going on in the community. So this was really a response, and really to galvanize everyone together to exemplify the Columbus way. And, you know, getting our arts organizations, we are stronger as a closed fist than an open hand. So we didn't want to approach this as an open hand, and to give everyone an opportunity to make or to enact change wherever they're able to do so. As far as upcoming events, we have, a host of events that have already gone on that have been virtual. We just wrapped up our All Arts Day honoring Amina Robinson last month. But we've really been going forward with it. We thought that it would end, say, last November, but we're still going strong. And thank you to BalletMet and all of our partners who have presented so many excellent pieces that we hope will serve as a time capsule and a resource for those to look back at and see how we've responded as a community, as a city, to end systemic racism and social, injustice that's been going on far too long. So just join us in checking into our website, www.kingartscomplex.com. And we look forward to future partnerships with BalletMet and to continue this work, because this is life work. We don't see it as, what we're doing this year is just going to be the elixir for all. So we all have to continue to roll up our sleeves to make a difference and to, provide the opportunities for Vincent and the ones coming after him and all of the students and artists that are coming up in this world.
Thanks, Javon. Just a couple more comments. Someone expressed that the mama part broke their heart and that they thought you did a great job, Vincent, expressing the emotions, the burden of the work. And someone else commented that the subtlety of the relationships between mama and the girlfriend were not caught the first time, but they did catch it the second time. Someone else has a question about, did Karen Wing get to share her experiences working with Mr. McKayle's? She did not, but Karen Wing is one of the company dancers here at BalletMet and has been with the company how many seasons, Edward? Probably 5 or 6?
This is her 7th.
7th season. Wow, time goes fast. She did not. She did work with Mr. McKayle's when she was at the University of California at Irvine. Perhaps if we do this again, she'll have some time to work with us on this type of program again. I think we have one more question in the chat. How can other dance organizations get plugged into the Heart of Protest? Do you have any answer for that, Javon?
Yeah, like I said, just going to our, website and reaching out to me as performing arts director, working tirelessly with our executive director and our entire team. But we're going to continue this, and there's so much work that needs to be done. When I think about Donald McKayle's piece, I mean, that was, an art's response to protests and what was going on with the chain gangs. I think of, when I was younger, as a younger man, back in the early 90s, there was a movie called Cadence. And we were kind of imitating what was going on in the chain gangs, but at the same time didn't know the impact that it's had on African-American culture here in America. So just doing the time to research, but also connecting. But just reach out to the King Arts Complex. You can email me. Whatever we can do to continue this work together, we will do. But thank you so much for that question.
Thanks. Another question says, amazing performance. I heard this work has been performed for some schools. How has the discussion been with the school students? Well, we were very creative this year with our school performances because we can't do them in person. Edward and I decided that we would try to film our lecture demo that we call Movement Makers and make that whole program available for schools online, which includes Rainbow Etude. Also, some of the works that Edward did specifically for school-age kids are included on that. And we just had our first online performance a few days ago with one of the middle schools here in Columbus. And then after that, they have a chance to have a live question, comment, answer session with the students. And actually, the students were more interested in the individual dancers and how they do what they do, what their training is like, how old they are, where they're from, why they like to dance. So we haven't gotten any comments yet, but hopefully we will. I think we have time for one more question. Nope, I might be wrong about that. So one more question. If you're dying to ask a question, go ahead and put it in the chat. have some wonderful comments here from you all. Thank you so much. I hope everybody can see them. All right, I think that's it for our questions and comments and answers. And I am going to turn it over to Javon to close our programming out. Thank you so much for being with us, Javon.
Yeah. So we would like to thank everyone who's attended tonight's performance. We'd like to thank the entire staff of BalletMet to Edward, Ambre, Vincent, everyone, and all of our partners and supporters of the Heart of Protest. As I mentioned earlier, this is work that will continue on for years to come until that, time where we can feel together in fighting systemic racism and social injustice that has been plaguing us for far too long. So we want to thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again. And for more information about Heart of Protest, please log on to kingartscomplex.com. Have a safe evening. Thank you.